Hello, welcome to season 2. We are talking DC. And yes, Moser, this is our cold open. And no, I have nothing planned. Say hello.
Hello.
I saw your face of horror in the moment, and I'm like, I don't actually have something. I thought about saying something. I couldn't come up with it. Either way, we're doing... Huh?
I'm like, that's such a bland entrance now.
It is such a bland entrance. You know what? We're zagging instead of zigging. You know, we're going bland instead of just randomly, I thought about singing like Batman, but I just did a Batman episode. Either way, we're reviewing Aquaman. We're talking DCEU in like a retrospect. And then we're going to talk future of DC with Moser, the very first guest on the show. All right, Moser. You want to say the words? Say the words.
Which ones?
Oh my god, he does not know the words. You are really bad at this. Cue the music. Hello, welcome to Don't Evolve Me, the place like Ash Ketchum Pikachu, we don't evolve. We just level up. We got Moser here. We're doing DCEU Aquaman 2. I mean, technically it's Aquaman the Lost Kingdom, but I think Aquaman 2 is just a better title because I don't like their actual title. And then we're going to talk DCEU and just like DC moving forward as a whole. Moser, welcome.
Thanks.
First guest ever on this show. And I wanted you to be the first guest of season 2. That didn't quite work. I ended up recording during Christmas break, and that ended up being the first episode. And then I ended up doing an emergency pod episode. But here you are. You're the first live action, like, in person.
I technically am still the first guest since you did them singly.
For season 2?
Yeah.
First in-person guest. First one in season, technically. Outside of the emergency pod, so we'll run with it. All right. So, what have you been nerding out on, Moser? It's been a while since we've chatted.
Baldur's Gate 3.
I'm trying to get into it. I keep getting my ass kicked.
It happens. I'm like, you're probably either one didn't level them up correctly, or two,
probably
you're
not
running into places you shouldn't be at that point.
Probably all the above.
Because it's not there's a certain path, but there are certain spots you shouldn't be until you're at a certain level.
I just wander. I don't have goals.
That would probably be your biggest problem, because
and then surprise encounter and. Surprise encounter. And I'm like, aha, okay, I'll fight you. And then, no. I get my ass kicked. And then, like, I hate going backwards, so it just messes with my ADHD. On top of the fact that, like, I like laying back when I play. I'm such a, like, more of a casual gamer nowadays. Whereas, like, I feel like this game I have to, like, sit up at a table, be all, like, engaged with the environment. It's also a combat style I'm not used to.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the game, though. I like for the little that I played through the first part and the prologue. Like, I enjoy the game for what it is, and I'm like, I know once I get into it, I will love this game. It's like The Witcher 3. They're not the same games, but like The Witcher 3 took me a while to like really learn how to like play the game, and once I got into it, it was like the only thing I did for a good month or two.
Mm-hmm.
I tried over Christmas break, couldn't do it. I failed. What else have you been nerding out on?
Overwatch 2, D&D, new animes too.
Oh, what are you been watching for animes?
The newest one that actually came out last week. I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically a party goes through a dungeon, faces a dragon.
Okay.
And the dragon eats one of their party. and it's the main character's sister.
Mm-hmm.
They're out of money.
Yep.
They don't have the stuff except for what's on them.
It sounds like a start of a D&D campaign.
And
Just
they start eating the monsters of the dungeon. So it's like a how to cook anime of the monsters. Like the first episode, they cook a scorpion and like a mushroom monster. And
interesting.
It's so great. It's honestly so stupid
But
that
you don't
it
know
is
the
great.
title of it.
I don't remember the title of
Okay.
it. It's on Netflix. It's
Okay.
season 2 just dropped.
I've been watching anime on Netflix. Shout out to Netflix, apparently.
They've
Yeah.
been grabbing the good ones.
I want to know how much you've been paying attention. Do you know which anime I've been watching?
My guess is you finally got into One Piece.
And
it is
How do you describe getting into? Like, how many episodes is getting into?
Well, getting into is if you watch the first 4 straight, because once
First
you
four
watch
what?
first 4 episodes in one sitting, because it's really not that long of an anime episodes.
No, not at all.
That you can easily watch the first 4 and not realize you just sat and watched for like an hour and a half.
Okay,
Because most shows now, it's like 44 to anywhere between like 40 to
It can be
48
long.
minutes that you kind of just don't notice that you just watched 2 episodes in the same amount of time.
Oh yeah. Okay, it's One Piece. Everybody who's been listening to this channel knows it's One Piece. How many episodes do you think I'm in? I'll give you this hint. Me and Sapphire are watching it together.
Okay, that just put a spin on it.
Yep.
My guess is you've probably at least watched 14 episodes.
Oh, you're way off. We're on episode 412.
Holy crap.
He is shocked. Yeah, we started in September, so we watched the live action and just fell in love with it. The live action is amazing.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I never watched most live action like animes or like adaptations have been like such disappointing. I remember Dragon Ball Z, the movie. Yep. It was such a disappointment because it just didn't grasp what made the show great and it didn't put it into the movie. Whereas like I feel like this show, One Piece, the live action, really like. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I feel like when you make an adaptation, you have to almost put your own spin on it because it's not the same medium. You have to find your own style to make it great, but you also have to take what made the show, the original show, great, or what the original video game great, and mix it in. You have to blend it together. And it's not an easy task. I know it's not an easy task, and that's one of the reasons why like, adaptations, when it's anime or video games, have failed a lot of times. Because most creators are like, oh, I'm going to put my own spin on it. It's like, you can't overdo it. The live action, just like, we're going to put our own spin on it, but it's going to, like, the core, the theme, the reason why the animation's so great, that's going to also be, like, one of the cores for the live action. And I, like, just love the fact that they did that. And I love the story. I love, like, the whimsical nature of the show. And I started watching the anime, and we started watching in September and haven't stopped. Like, that is, every time we do, what are you nerding out on? It's One Piece.
Nice.
Because I don't want to watch anything else. And speaking of which, I have an update. I wanted to make a TikTok on this. How far have you been in One Piece? Have you watched much of it?
I'm probably like episode 144.
You're 144. Okay. So, this isn't much spoilers, but there is an arc called Island of Women. And I feel like this is probably one of the more infamous episodes of One Piece. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I don't know much of like the lore of One Piece, like outside, because I haven't really paid attention. But like this is one of those episodes where like he goes onto like an Amazon island, and you know, I feel like most shows that do this type of concept, they're cute with it. They're like, oh, look, it's a boy. We're girls. We're revealing clothing, and that's like basically it. They flirt with the idea. One Piece doesn't flirt with the idea. They just fucking go with it. And like right now it's Luffy on the island, and he like once started eating mushrooms because he was hungry, and I was like, Luffy does shrooms. But like, what's funny about it is like the shrooms actually alter his mood. He's like, this is the happy feeling mushroom. Oh, this is the sad mushroom. This is the angry. Like they were doing it, and he's like, like at one point he was just high off his mind. I'm like, holy shit, they're like. They're doing it. They're not flirting with it. They're doing it. And then he gets mushrooms starts like popping up on his body, and I'm like, they did cordyceps before Last of Us. And so like the island of women have to like take him in and like take off all the mushrooms, and that's how you essentially save them. And there's one mushroom left, except it's not a mushroom. And like they keep pulling on it and it won't go, and he's stretchy, right? Yeah. So it keeps stretching, and they're like, there's two more. There must be sack mushrooms, and they keep pulling on it. I'm like, holy shit, they're fucking jacking somebody off in an anime. I'm like, this is like, what is it, Hatai or whatever, like the Japanese porn? Like, this is like, without showing it, this is essentially what's going on here. And I'm like appalled, but also I appreciate the fact that they say, fuck it, we're just doing it. And like, he's naked, like they end up putting him in jail because he's a man on an island of women. Men are forbidden. And he's just like hanging out naked, and all the women are just gawking at like his mushroom and sack shrooms. And like, they're not mushrooms, it's my family jewels. And like, he's rich? And I'm just laughing my ass off. I'm like, is this fucking happening?
Yes,
it is. And like, he ends up escaping, and like one of the giant women try to block him, and they're all wearing like very revealing like swimsuits basically. And the woman like blocks him, and he like lands in her like giant tits and bounces. And when he bounces, like there's a full animation of her boobs just like jiggling. And like, again, I'm like, one, I somewhat enjoy it as a male, but two, I'm also like appalled because like I keep thinking of One Piece as a kids show, and I know it's not because there's curse words. I know it's more for like adult males, young adult males, but at the same time, I've always like pictured it as like a teenage show, and I'm like, all right, I'm somewhat appalled a little bit. I'm kind of questioning the nature of the show, but at the same time, I appreciate the fact that he just said, "Fuck it, we're just doing it."
Welcome to why everyone enjoys One Piece, because it's like you're being a child, but at the same time, it's meant for us.
I love it.
By the way, have you seen that they did a live action of Yu Yu Hakusho now on Netflix?
I have not.
Yeah, they made a live action of the oldie.
Okay, I'm still barely getting into anime. I still like. There's so much to dive in. I'm like, I'll just dive in a little bit. Ro, when I told him I started, he's just like, why didn't you start like 7 months ago when I asked you to start? So I'm like, you know what? It takes time for me to get into something. All right, I gotta do it on my own motivation. I can't just like, somebody can't say, hey, this is a great show, I'm gonna watch. You should watch it, and me be like, oh yeah, and then watch it. And like, ADHD, or you gotta have the motivation.
Otherwise, you're missing a lot of stuff.
All right, we got to move on. Any other nerding out things you want to just briefly mention?
No.
I've been playing Super Mario Wonder still. I started Echo, and it's the episode I'm going to do next week. I watched the first episode. Daredevil's in it. It's fucking amazing. Like, there's a fight scene where Echo, she's deaf. So, like, it kept switching from, like, sound to, like, no sound. And just the way they transition is really great. And then Daredevil shows up afterwards. I'm like, wow, this fight scene was amazing before Daredevil. And then Daredevil shows up. I'm like, damn. I've only watched one episode, but I'm excited for it. I love Daredevil. And the Pokemon game I kind of started getting into is Arceus.
Okay.
I've already played it, beat it. I'm just shiny hunting, and I'm just enjoying it. It's one of my more favorite games. But all right, we got to get into the news.
It's time for a news quickie. Oh, yeah.
All right, should we do DC news first, or should we save that for the last? I feel like we should save it for last.
Probably last.
All right, so I did emergency pod this week. You can check it on YouTube. You can check it on the show. But Star Wars dropped like 4 different things.
Yep, saw that.
They, Ahsoka Season 2, Mandalorian Grogu's getting a movie. I voiced concerns about the movie. I'm like, I hope they have a good idea and it's not just Disney. Like, print money, please. Just make a story. It's going to print money. Really hoping it's, no, we have to make this into a movie. I don't think that's the case. We'll digress. A couple other movies. Rey's getting her own movie, which I'm for it. I'm for the whole first, like, them actually doing a restarting of the Jedi. Since they didn't do that with Luke. Even though, like, with The Last Jedi, he tried doing it. I like how they're actually, like, diving into that storyline. And then the other one's Dawn of the Jedi, which I'm for it. James Mangold's a decent director.
Yeah.
And the other one is Last of Us casted three characters for season 2. They casted Abby. Except Abby is like this giant physical female, and they casted a 5'2" actress to play her.
Kind of have to.
No, I don't know. I feel like 5'7" is not hard.
Okay.
I will say she does look like Abby when she's dressed up like in Abby clothes. I did make a mistake on the emergency pod. I said that Bella Ramsey is taller. She is not. She's 5'1". I always think, like from Game of Thrones, I think she's tiny, but like in The Last of Us, I always thought she was like 5'5", 5'6". She's actually 5'1". So Abby's still taller. Dina and Jesse also got casted as well. Dina's the new one that I didn't talk about before. It's the girl who played Dora is playing Dina. I'm just gonna see. I'm like Dora, Dora. If at one point she said, "Yeah, you did it," I'm gonna laugh my ass off. I hope they do it. They won't. Some Marvel news. Speaking of Echo and Daredevil, Daredevil Netflix and all the Netflix shows are essentially canon now, I guess. The producers said that it's canon, and they put on Disney Plus, they put the Netflix shows as in a timeline order. So I guess they're canon. I don't know how I feel about it. I think I'm going to share my thoughts more next week when I do that episode.
I have to say it's probably one of the smarter things they did.
I think it is
just because so many people loved the Netflix of it, and they really didn't have to do much with it since they were kind of done. And you've already thrown this Daredevil in. It would be kind of a waste if they didn't take
and the Battle of New York is also part of the lore of those shows, and it's supposed to be tied into the MCU.
Right.
I just hope that means we get Bullseye back, like in full Bullseye costume.
Nice.
That's all I'm hoping for. We do got to move on because we got to actually get to our topic. I'm trying to make that change for season 2, and I'm already failing. Okay. The Marvels is MCU's lowest box office movie. I think that The Marvels is a decent film. I don't know if it deserves lowest box office, but I think we're just all at an all-time low when it comes to faith in Marvel.
I wouldn't say it's faith in Marvel. I think we all kind of just didn't want to go to the theater to see it. That it's probably going to get a little bit more hype once it gets to DVD, where we can actually get it in our own homes. Mm-hmm. That it's going to pick up buzz and get what it should be. But I have a feeling, due to the fact like we still haven't been in the let's go to the movies type feel again.
That's fair. Aquaman 2 is a hard movie to get to, and I'll explain more of that later. Let's get into the last bit of news, and then we'll take a short break. James Gunn has been talking about the DCEU. One is Margaret Robbie. She's been talking. He's mentioned that he wants her back, either as Harley Quinn or as a different character. Just a reminder that he and her worked together in the Suicide Squad movie. She's a great Harley Quinn. I don't know if I want her back as Harley Quinn, but she was a great Harley Quinn. Like, I have no problems, and I think she'd be amazing. But I'm also at a point where I almost just want a refresh of these characters. Yeah.
It's just going to be hard to see her as a different character after
she could do it. depending on which character it is.
Fair.
Two more things, and then because we'll get into it later. Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, is playing Maxwell Lord, who was last played by Pedro Pascal in Wonder Woman 1984. I think it's an interesting choice. I know a lot of people have their negative thoughts on it. Maxwell Lord, to me, is like one of those characters that like I don't feel like he needs to be really a certain type, and if James Gunn wants his brother to play it, I think that's a minimal role that I'm perfectly fine for that role. He does play two other roles because he's technically Weasel, and he voices a character in Creatures Commandos, but no live action role technically. And the last bit of news, Supergirl is almost casted and might be casted by the time this comes out. Millie Alcock, Amelia Jones, and Meg Donnelly are all rumored to be the frontrunners. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is the movie that they're casting her for. And I am excited for that movie, which we'll talk about. But, unless you have any more thoughts, Moser?
Nope.
We're going to take a short break. And then we're going to talk Aquaman 2. Alright, back from break. Time to do Aquaman 2, or Aquaman The Lost Kingdom. And Moser, I know you've been watching my TikToks because you like all of them. Which I greatly appreciate that. And when we were on break, I was like internally debating how I wanted to review this. Because like normally when I do state of reviews, and it's like only like 3 movies, I go through the whole plot of the movie.
Right. And
then give my thoughts in between like the plot. But on the TikToks, I try to do like a funny intro where I always rate the title for some reason. I feel like it's a must. And then I do like another like goofy saying, or like I do like an intro, pros, cons, and then my rating. And part of me wants to, I had another thought of how I wanted to do this, and I kind of just want to recap this like I'm a 12-year-old playing toys, and I want to like or maybe like an 8-year-old playing toys, and like tell you the story of my play, because that's how I feel about this movie. But I will say, before we start, I have to do the title, because I always have to do the title. Aquaman The Lost Kingdom is like the most boringest title ever, that I prefer Aquaman 2. Like, I didn't realize it was called Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom until I sat down in the movie theater and it came up and I was like, oh, that's the title. I thought it was just Aquaman 2. And I will say, after watching the movie, The Lost Kingdom just doesn't really do it justice. Like, it should have just been Black Manta's Revenge. Or The Black Trident. Or something else that was cooler. And The Lost Kingdom is just boring. Yeah. It's a boring title. I'll give it a 2. So, I kind of want to recap. I'm going to recap this movie. If you don't want spoilers for this movie, skip 5 minutes. This is your spoiler warning. I will say, though, if you do watch and you haven't watched, or if you were to watch this or listen to this recap of mine, and you haven't watched Aquaman 2 yet, I'm not ruining much. There is no big plot twist or like reveal that is worthy of me ruining it. Alright. And if this is bad, I don't care. It's just going. It's like, I don't know if this is good or not. I was kind of practicing last night after the movie. Alright. So I'm going to pretend like you're the producer and I'm like the 8-year-old explaining my play. So like, Aquaman's fighting these bad guys, and they're like pirates, and then he's going pew pew pew, and then I'm going to be like, surprise, he's not actually fighting pirates, he's just playing with his toys in front of his son. And that's right, surprise, he has a son, and he's living daddy life, and it sucks because he has to wake up in the middle of the night, and then he has to go do his day job, which is being the king, and he doesn't like being king because politics suck and it's boring, and it's just blah blah blah. But he'd rather be Aquaman because he kicks ass. And everyone thinks he's lame because he talks to fish, but he's not lame because he rides a Harley and he goes in circles and he does burnouts and he's a cool dude listening to rock music. And then Black Manta's in the movie because he's going to be the villain because he's going to get his revenge, but he's not quite powerful enough yet. So he needs to go to get this black trident or something to make him super powerful. But surprise, I'm like spitting a lot when I'm doing this. Good thing you're not in front of me, Moser.
I was like 8-year-old. Hello.
That's fair. But then he finds the trident, and there's actually like a demon guy in it, and they're just going to be the Necrons from Warhammer. But I'm not going to tell you that yet. You're going to figure out later in the movie. Then he's going to get super powerful, and it's going to talk to him. He's telling him to do evil things. And he's going to need this like cool green glowing fuel source, and we're just going to make it a cool name like Aquaman. I don't even remember the name of it. It's just going to start with an O. It's going to sound cool and all sciencey. And then he's going to be trying to go different parts of the ocean to go get vaults. And then he's going to, they're 5 months later, he's in a cool super base. He's going to be in a sub. It's going to be all blacked out. There's going to be cool like these cool vehicles with tentacles on it. Very much like the Necrons, but they're not Necrons. They're the Necris, but we're not going to reveal it until later. Then they're going to go to a vault, and it's surprise, it's actually Atlantis. And then he's going to get in a fight with Mira, and he's going to hit Mira with the beams. And then Aquaman's going to be like, don't do that to my wife. And they're going to fight, and then he's going to escape. And then they're going to be like, oh, he's using the weird green stuff, and it's going to ruin the world, and we got to do something quickly. And he's like, and Aquaman's like, you know what? There's only one man to help us with the job, my brother. Like, they're not going to let you break him out. And I'm like, we're going to break him out anyway. So he breaks out his brother, and then they go to this evil base, or this evil like pirate town where they do stuff like drinking and gambling, and they're going to talk to the boss there. And his brother's like, don't just flex your muscles, we're going to negotiate. And then it didn't go well. He's like, you know what, flex your muscles. And Aquaman beats the crap out of him until he reveals the secret where he's at. And then they go to the super pirate or super volcano base. And then on the super volcano base, it's actually this area where the green gas fuel stuff that they're getting, the orcolcum? I think it's the orcolcum. It's going to turn all the plants and stuff into monsters, and they're going to have to fight monsters, and they're going to find the base, and they're going to beat up all the bad guys. And then there's a science dude, and he's going to be like, halt, I have this weapon, and it's specifically designed to kill Atlanteans. And he's going to like shut the door, and he's like, surprise, I'm surrendering, this guy's crazy, please stop him. And then they fight, but guess what, he gets away. And then Aquaman's like, no, save me. But instead of his brother saving him, it's going to be a surprise. His wife's back. She's all fine and healthy again. And then they realize, or Orm takes the trident, and the trident tells all the secrets that they need to know. And he's like, oh, he needs a bloodline. And they're like, well, he either needs me or the queen. But, oh, surprise, I have a son. So they go back home, and they find that Aquaman's dad got beaten up, and the son's gone. And they're like, oh, it's in Antarctica. So they go to Antarctica, and that's where they reveal the Necrons. I mean, the Necris. And then they have to go to the king, and they need the Aquaman's blood to get into the thing to reveal the guy, the evil Necron guy, Necris guy. And then they beat Black Manta, and it's like, surprise, Orm's going to do it now. But Aquaman reminds them, he's like, Orm, you're not a bad guy now. You're my brother. But it's too late anyway, so the dead king rises up, and then he's like, you know what, I'm going to throw the trident. And surprise, it doesn't work. But then a bigger surprise, he throws a second trident, and then everybody is dead, the day is saved, and that's the end of the movie. And you're probably thinking, Jake, it's got to be deeper than that, right? It's not. It is not deeper than that. Because I forget who wrote the screenplay, because I like watched the credits and I'm like, who wrote this screenplay? And if it turned out the guy who wrote the screenplay is only like 12 years old, I wouldn't be surprised. Because that's probably like my biggest thing about this whole movie is the screenplay sucks. Like there's literally scenes where they get the grammar wrong. Like there's one scene where like the assistant dude was like, hey, if you talking about Orm when you break him out, he's like, when you broke him out, he's gonna be super powerful. And I'm like, wait, what? Did you just say broke him? You mean break it? They just fucked up on grammar. How did they let this in the movie? And there's like a couple moments like that too. There's like another moment. It's like, you know, the classic science guys like, what have we done? It's what did I do? And it's like, and it doesn't sound bad when I say it out loud, but the scene, like when he says it, was just so bad. I'm like, it just doesn't register. I want to rant about this movie. Because here's the thing. Aquaman 1, I wouldn't say, like, it's a borderline good film. But the thing that Aquaman, the first one, has going for it is the fact that, like, we haven't seen this world yet. And this movie kind of just goes. And it's kind of just fun because it's like, oh, it's Aquaman. We get to see all these cool, crazy creatures. We get to see Atlantis. We get to learn about all these, like, we get to learn about Ocean Master. We get to learn about Black Manta. We get to learn about Atlantis. We get to learn about Arthur Curry. Like, it's all about these learning experiences. And it, like, almost covers up flaws of the film, being that it's a really shallow screenplay. This movie does not have that coverage. This movie doesn't have the whole, like, new excitement because we've already been here. This is just like an added on sequel, and it has the same flaws. And I kept, like, finding myself when I was watching this film realizing that, like, this is a movie about, like, going deep in the ocean, but this movie is so shallow surface wise. And Moser, I know you talked to me before and you're like, oh man, I was excited for Aquaman 2. I think it's gonna be better than the first one. And I had to, like, shut the fuck up because I so want to tell you, like, it's not. It is not. If you haven't watched it in theaters yet and I just spoiled it for you, this is good enough. You don't need to know more. I will, let's talk positives though. I will say, visually speaking, this movie's actually pretty good. I think the direction wise, outside of the script and some of the acting, like, I think this movie looks good. I think this could have been a great movie, or at least a good movie. But the screenplay is just so bad. Not even like the grammar side of things. It's just like, I found myself really interested in, like, the politics of, like, the whole, because there's that one point where, like, you're not fit to be king, Arthur, and he's, like, falling asleep at these meetings, and they're talking about whether or not they should reveal themselves to the surface world, and then, like, Black Man attacks, and they're questioning his leadership, and I'm like, that's interesting, like, that, especially when they bring Orm, and Orm's, like, all political, and he's actually, like, still caring about Atlantis, and I'm like, this is some really cool dynamics and relationships, but they just gloss over it. It's just words. And there's, like, a whole point where they're like, I'm gonna break Orm out to help. And actually, I'm gonna back up a little bit, because, like, this movie speaks a lot but doesn't really show. Like, they'll start a mission and they'll speak the plan as they do the plan. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I understand, like, exposition wise, like, you, like, this is information that we need to know, but I'm like, this is just a lazy way to show it. And honestly, if I had explained the screenplay, it's lazy. It is so lazy. Like, when they, like, do the cutscenes, and they, not cutscenes, but they'll cut and they'll be like, they'll show the location on the bottom. It's not like Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean. It's somewhere in the Atlantic, somewhere in the Pacific. Like, you son of a bitches can't even, like, tell us where it is. Like, just look at a map, point the coordinates down, and put it down there. Because then we can, like, at least look it up. Like, ideally where it is on a map. But no, it's somewhere in the Pacific, somewhere in the Atlantic. I'm like, just don't even fucking say anything at that point. Like, it's just lazy. Like, you don't even have the decency to, like, visually put it on a map and, like, at least say, like, it's 400 miles east or south of, like, a certain island. Like, I'm probably not going to know where it is, but at least, like, tell me. Like, to me, it's just lazy if you don't do the work. And there's so many lazy parts, too, because Black Manta, he has the orichalcum. I think it's orichalcum is the actual term of it. He has the orichalcum. And the orichalcum is supposed to be bad for the environment. And they're like, oh, if he uses it right away, it's going to be this huge problem for the Earth, like immediately. And they say it, but they never show it. And they do kind of show it later, but like they talked about global warming before they even found the stuff, and talked about how global warming was a problem. One, it's climate change now, not global warming. That's another thing too. I know it's different universes, but I'm like, at least call it climate change, because like that's the now correct term. I just realized they did that. I don't care that much, but like this is how lazy it is. Like at least put the right stuff. My daughter's screaming in the background. But yeah, like they're like, oh, if you use it right away, like they made it urgent, but like they didn't show it was urgent. To me, I'm like, why is this an urgent thing? And like immediately, Aquaman's like, I gotta go get my brother. He's the only one who knows Black Manta. I'm like, why? Like to me, that's like he even speaks like, this is the last thing I want to do. I'm like, to me, everything that's been shown so far doesn't meet the criteria to break your evil brother out of jail. Like, if it is like that dire, show it being that dire. And then they break him out of jail. And it's like at a desert. It's like these weird creatures with like these weird horse bug-like creatures. They barely explain it. It's all talk anyway. He breaks him out. He has long hair. And literally the next scene, his long hair is gone and it's short and cut. And they're all in different clothes. He's like, went from this skinny dude into this large dude. And they kind of explain it. 'Cause it's like, hey, he's dehydrated. That's why he's skinny. If he gets water, he'll be fine again. They do explain it. But the fact that like his hair gets immediately cut the next scene, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, at least show like a scene of like some Atlantean technology cutting his hair or something. Like, this is like ultra lazy. And like when they're on the island of like the super bugs, super like rats, and like all the monsters are like overgrown, and Aquaman kept saving his life. And the thing is, he never really saved his life. He just jokingly says, I saved your life again. And the fact that, like, in that same area, Aquaman's, like, literally getting crushed by rocks, and he gets saved. They didn't, like, show who saved him. And I'm like, oh, okay, the classic, like, redemption arc story. They didn't even do that. It was like, nope, it's his wife. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, at least, like, do the obvious thing where, like, the redemption story where, like, he saves his brother. And he does save another person later on. Orm does. And, like, they do the tease. Like, he just looks away and walks as this other guy's falling to his death. But, like, it shows that he comes around to save him. And he does save Mira at one point. But I'm like, at least have him save his brother. Because, like, if you're going to have multiple lines of dialogue talking about Aquaman saving you. And, like, this character's on a redemption arc. At least, like, have him save. And then at the end where Orm, like, temporarily, like, betrays Aquaman and is like taken over by the evil spirit of the Trident and like starts to release him. Like, there was no indication that he was going to betray Aquaman at any point. The only reason why it's there is because he was a bad guy at one point and hated him at one point. But the movie does no work for that moment. And I'm like, what the fuck is this scene? And the whole thing, like, it's really funny because he's like, you're not a bad guy, you're my brother. And like the last little bit too, the evil guy shows up. And he's just like there, like, I'm gonna take over. And they throw a trident, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be over, thank God. And he catches it, and I'm like, oh, there's another battle scene. Dang it, I really want to get out of this movie theater. And then like Orb's like, here's the trident, Arthur, and he throws his own trident at him and then kills him. I'm like, that's like the only twist in this whole movie is the fact that the first one doesn't kill him, the second one does. And like, so the big battle of the whole film is only on screen for like 2 minutes. Not even. And I will say, they do just take Necrons from Warhammer 40k, which I wouldn't know if it wasn't thanks to Tom, Nerdier Than You Chatfield. I did tell him I was going to shout him out. Because here's the thing about the Necrons. They're evil species, or not evil species. They're a species that's very, very old. They ended up all, like, the leader, I could be butchering this, turn the citizens into machines, and they're all fueled by this glowing green source. And they're essentially monsters. And this movie literally just took Necrons for 40K into this because glowing green fuel. Old, like, leader turned the whole, instead of, like, cyborgs, they turned them into evil monsters with glowing green eyes. They're literally called the Necrons. They didn't even try to, like, switch it up. And, like, the vehicles that I have for the, because we, like, that's our Don't Evolve Me 40K army is the Necrons. And so we have, like, the vehicles for it. The vehicles are very much the same vehicles that Black Manta has in the Necros army. And I'm like, this is, you just copy and pasted and barely did enough to switch over. So, that's my Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom rant. My rating on it's a 2. I was debating between 2 or 2+. Visually wise, it does look really cool. Black Manta is probably one of my favorite, like, villains. Not so much like DCEU, but I will say just in general, like, visually, he looked really great in this movie. It just didn't do enough. It's a 2. I'm sorry, Moser. This movie is not good. This movie's almost trash if it wasn't for the visual directing. If it wasn't for the visual effects and the direction, like the directing, it would have been a 1. The screenplay's a 1. It's awful. Also, Jason Momoa, I like him as an actor. I don't mind if Jason Momoa was casted in another role and it was like a side role for like a side character in like a show or a movie, I think he'd be great. He is not a leading role. Not at all. Because there's like, in the beginning, he does a narration, and he cannot narrate to save his fucking life. Because he's just like, I'm king, I do this, I do that, and I do it. And there's like no pacing. He's just rapidly going through, and I'm like, this just sounds awful. This sounds like an amateur on YouTube. This sounds like, I feel like I could have done a better job than Jason Momoa. And I don't have practice. Like, it's not great. So that's my rant. It's a 2. Don't see it in theaters. It's not really worth it. It's a non-glorious end for the DCEU. And Moser, you've been quiet for too long. Let's get you back in. Let's talk DCEU. This is our segue. All right. Should we get into like the questions and the talking point of the DCEU, or should we get into ratings right away? No, you know what? No. The DCEU is now over. There's 16 films, technically 1 TV show, but I feel like Peacemaker doesn't really constitute as DCEU. Plus, I'm pretty sure it's going to be considered DCU. So we'll just focus on the 16 movies. We won't focus on Joker. We won't focus on the Batman. What are your thoughts on this particular franchise now that it's over with?
Not that great. When you think of when they made it, it was almost like it came out to combat Marvel.
It was.
Like, literally, it was made to combat Marvel, and it failed almost every time.
I don't know if I would say it failed every time, but it was very much they wanted to make their own MCU. And I think, one, having Zack Snyder do Man of Steel, which I know you just watched, and you gave its praises. I feel like Zack Snyder as the choice to even do a first film isn't great. And that film is fine. Like, when I first watched it, I actually really liked it. But now that I'm like I got really into like comic books, I got really into Superman. It's one of those movies where I don't like it anymore. Simply because like it just doesn't feel like Superman a lot of the times. It's the same David Esquire. I just talked about it in the Dark Knight trilogy for Batman Begins. I actually don't like that script that much anymore, now watching it. And Man of Steel is literally kind of just copy-paste from Batman Begins. And I just don't feel like it's a great formula for success, because it starts like 20, 30 minutes into the fate of Krypton. And then it gets into this like grim Man of Steel, like Superman.
Yeah.
And like Superman's literally about hope. Not that he's like a cheery like Spider-Man character. He's more stoic. But like he has that like grim smile to his face. And Henry Cavill did a great job. There was like a scene at the end of that movie where he smiles at the military. I'm like, yes, this scene right here, this is Superman. This is how Superman should act. But his whole like brooding like start, didn't really care for it. That's me going off on Man of Steel. But I was very like, when they announced Batman versus Superman instead of Man of Steel 2, and that's going to be like the start of like the DCEU, I was hesitant that it was going to be Zack Snyder. Because I'm like, he doesn't understand Superman. But I will say I was very excited for Batman vs. Superman. That was the movie that like I went in with about a 9 or a 10 excitement. What are your thoughts? Or what was your excitement at that point in time?
Honestly, with that, I was excited for it, but it was more of like probably a 5 or 6, because I know at that point we had so much Batman.
Dark Knight, yep.
But I wanted at least some kind of Batman in this universe type movie, even if they like threw him in before this, because this is one of the more like epic rivalries.
Yeah.
Of the DCU, of like,
I wouldn't even call it a rival. They're friends.
But this is before that. This movie was before they became friends. This is basically kind of Batman learning who Superman is.
Yeah.
At that point, Superman was just this alien.
It was an intriguing premise,
but it didn't really give the backstory of, is this young Batman? Is this old Batman? What Batman is this? We were kind of just thrown and had to figure out what Batman this was, of like, is he still like battling the Joker and all of his villains, or is this like he's already been battling him for 40 years, and now all of a sudden this new person comes in and we're getting the old Batman that basically has all of his like gadgets and everything, that's technically what we got, because he made a suit to fight Superman.
We got an alternate universe Batman, which isn't a bad thing, but I also don't know if it was a great choice. The Batman that we got was a 40-year-old Dark Knight Returns like Batman. Even though that Batman's 60, this one's 40, where he has faced the Joker, but it was Dick Grayson who died, not Jason Todd. And then this alien comes, because he's like the only real hero. There's not like superpowers until Superman comes, and that changes the dynamic of everything. And Batman, who's now older, probably more pessimistic. I think there's a better word. I can't think of like the word. It's on the top of my head. Cynical, maybe.
Yeah.
There's like a different word that I know would fit more. If I hear it, I'll be like, aha. Like, he has such a like bad look on things, and I really like the idea of like what I was hoping they would do, because Superman kills in Man of Steel.
Yep.
And I think that would have been a cool moment where like, hey, you killed, you're an evil alien, and like all of his fears leads up to a battle, and then like reveal like no, he's actually a good dude. Like I was excited for that premise because I'm like, it's a Batman story we haven't seen, and it makes sense. But the story we got wasn't quite that.
No.
It was like Superman kind of already turned, and it wasn't because of Batman. And Batman, his hatred for Superman was understandable kind of because his building fell down, but like it didn't feel like Bruce Wayne. And I thought it was a huge mistake for Zack Snyder to skip, like, I think it was a big mistake for Warner Bros. To be like, Zack Snyder, you did great with Man of Steel. We're going to give you this universe. And then he went off and created characters that wasn't true to, like, the core of Batman and Superman. And I think that's the biggest mistake that Zack Snyder made and Warner Brothers made. Is Zack Snyder, Zack Snyder has a fetish, I believe, for destroying characters, breaking down characters. He does, and he talks about it in interviews. He's like, oh yeah, I really like Superman, but I want to like change him into like this other character and break him down where he's like more edgier and like he had to kill. And it's like, that's not Superman. That's like Elseworld Superman. That's alternative Superman. Batman being the same, where he brands his victims and he uses guns and he has like no care about their lives. I'm like, that's not Batman. That's just a different vigilante. And I think that's where the mistake was, is you had someone in charge who didn't respect the characters for who they are. And I feel like this is two sides of the coins, because like once Justice League came out and his whole family situation came, where his daughter took her life and he had to step away from the project, and they're like, the executives were like, all right, we need somebody else to like make these characters. And then, Justice League was released, and that was the first time I felt like those characters were truly like the comic book accurate characters. But there is a flip side, because that movie sucked. The movie was atrocious. Zack Snyder's Justice League was actually pretty decent. It was a pretty decent film. And there is a part of me that wants to actually see Zack Snyder's version of this universe play out, because like it is interesting. But I don't, if you're gonna make something rival the MCU, you can't do an Elseworld alternative story. You have to be true to the characters. And that's where I think Zack Snyder failed, because he wasn't true to the characters. Flash is not Flash. Superman wasn't really Superman.
No.
It wasn't really until like Shazam, where it was like the first time Shazam felt like Shazam. Even Aquaman wasn't truly Aquaman, which I think that's fine, because Aquaman doesn't have much of a personality. It's more of a stoic personality. Whereas like this is just Jason Momoa, and I'm fine with that, because I think that choice is, I don't know if Jason Momoa is the man to do that, but I think like Aquaman could use that change. But Barry Allen, even though I like Ezra Miller's version of Barry Allen at the end, I'm like, it's just not, it doesn't feel like the characters I knew. Whereas for Marvel, 100%, these are the characters that I like knew from the comic books. Every character feels like Iron Man feels like Iron Man. Captain America feels like Captain America. Hulk feels like Hulk. Thor, even when they switched his personality into a more goofier side, still felt like Thor. Like, you can make changes. Like, Star-Lord, for example. He made him goofier instead of, like, more heroic. But, like, that was a character to change, because most characters didn't know. And it changed for the better. And it fit the universe. Whereas, like, these characters changed to be edgier, but it wasn't better.
Right.
Sorry for, like, the long rant here. So, should we do our rankings?
I'm sitting here, like, I have 15 movies. What's the 16th?
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
It's on here. Because I
it is?
have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Blue Beetle, Flash, Shazam.
You have both Shazams?
2. Yep.
Both
Squad
Wonder
Squad.
Woman?
I do have both Wonder Woman.
Do you have both Justice Leagues, both versions? Yep. Black Adam?
It was just here. Where'd it go? What the heck?
Do you not have Black Adam?
I'm sitting here like, yep, somehow Black Adam came up. Of
All right, we found it. I will say, like, when we were talking, like, do you have both Suicide Squads? Do you have both Justice Leagues? Do you have both Shazam and Wonder Woman? Which, those are sequels, and Aquaman's a sequel. But, like, the Suicide Squads, they had to really redo Suicide Squad.
Yep.
And they had to redo Justice League. Like, I feel like that just tells you how.
That how bad some of these are.
Okay. How do you have Lost Kingdom on there?
Well, because so I just went on to the DCEU
Okay.
and highlighted the chart and copy pasted to do the ranking.
Okay.
And for some reason, Black Adam popped off. It was
Okay.
actually on the list, and I'm like, I don't remember deleting it. And it should be down here towards like Shazam and the Flash, but it's not there.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to... You want to switch it up and do a draft? Where we'll draft like which movies are like, let's see which one can have like the best output, and we'll just do our rankings as a draft board.
That's totally fine.
Let's do that. I think that's more interesting than just like numbering it.
Right.
All right. I'm gonna figure out, do a chart real quick. 8, 2, perfect. Not perfect, because like it's literally in the middle of my rankings. Whatever, it's fine. Okay, I'm gonna give you first. First up.
Oh, Blue Beetle.
You're doing Blue Beetle right?
Yeah.
I know you told me.
I was like, Blue Beetle is my number one, just because the way I look at it is this is an origin movie. So it's not supposed to be this like epic, perfect dive into it. And the way they did Blue Beetle was great. They made it comical. They actually made it like kind of like realistic, of like this kid now just basically got attached with a basically death bug for armor that controls his body too, and it actually shows like him, I wouldn't say maturing, but like getting used
Growing.
to it and have the growth that for origin movies, I would say this somewhat, yeah, I could be wrong, but rivals the Iron Man movie, which I think Iron Man was probably one of the better origin stories, because it actually like showed the growth of the character throughout the movie of him becoming the Iron Man.
Blue Beetle's 9 on my list. I think it's a good origin movie. I think it's one of those movies, because I think for hype, it's like a 2. Most people didn't think this movie was going to be good. And I think when they watched it, they were surprised at how good this was. But I think at the end of the day, it's still a small scale movie. And I put it 9. And maybe I'm lower on it. I don't know. To me, it was a decent story. Decent origin. It's a character that I like. It's one of my favorite characters in Young Justice. It's one that I was excited to see. But I felt like the movie, for like, you had to make an excuse for it. And origin movies usually are lower on my list because there's so much time developing a character. And I think you're right. Iron Man's like one of the best ones, if not the best origin movie. Shang-Chi's another one that's up there as well.
Right.
Maybe Spider-Man, the very first Spider-Man.
Right.
I think Shazam's a better origin movie. But I think Blue Beetle is up there. I'm going to take the Suicide Squad for my first pick. To me, this is the only movie... Actually, I had 2 movies that I gave 4s. Like in the 4 range. Even 4 minuses. Suicide Squad's the only movie I can say it's great, no question about it. James Gunn, he just makes great movies. This movie's great. Like, I was surprised all the way through. I didn't know it was going to die. The first opening scene where they have like all these characters, and they're like, surprise, this isn't the cast. This isn't like the actual characters. It's these characters. And you kind of knew that. But like, I felt like this movie just like really really embodied what the Suicide Squad was about, and it was just a blast. So that's my first pick. What's your second?
Man of Steel.
Okay.
Because, in my opinion, it's not... Like you said, it made it like the darker Superman.
Mm-hmm.
That with what he was going with was he was going darker. He was changing it up. Yeah, it doesn't fit the comics.
No.
But you could see kind of what way he was going in
with
all the movies. So this one kind of set the pace.
It does.
So
I will say the whole like his dad going like this, like, no son, let me die so your secret is safe. Like, that's stupid.
I did. When that happened, I'm like, this is for a way for his dad to die, basically dying because he didn't want his son to, save him in front of all those people. I kind of was like, that's really not a whole lot of people.
Not a whole lot of people. He's so fast they wouldn't even see him move. Like, it was a very traumatic experience where they probably wouldn't even believe what they saw, and if they did and they asked him to like not say anything, they probably wouldn't.
Right.
And also, he died to save the dog.
Right, he died to save the dog. And on top of this, his son's already been revealed to the kids on the bus.
Yeah.
Of just like, you had all those kids, and these are kids. They're not like adults or anything, and kids talk. And it's just like, so if you were able to brush this under the rug, how would you not be able to brush of like, you couldn't make it of like, oh no, the tornado like blew me all the way over here. Like I went flying towards you guys. It wasn't my son. I'm like, if you were able to, there were many eyewitnesses to him pushing a bus out of the freaking lake and put that under the rug. I'm pretty sure like the tornado thing would have just like not mattered.
I don't think it would have. And even if it did, I don't know. It was dumb. There's a lot of dumb moments in Zack Snyder movies that don't make sense when you really think about it. For my number 2, I had Man of Steel at number 7 for me. It's one of those films that like originally I had it like 1 for the longest time until Wonder Woman came out. But after getting to know Superman a lot more, I like hate this film. I will say I like the fight scenes, but also like Metropolis just like getting destroyed and Superman like being one of the main reasons why it's getting destroyed. I'm like, that's also not Superman. He would care that his city's getting destroyed. He would like purposely move it out so it wouldn't be destroyed. Like, who is this? Like, I know he's a rookie. Yeah. I'm going to stop talking about Man of Steel. Because I could make a whole episode about how like that movie bothers the fuck out of me. And that's the next movie I have to rate on TikTok. And that's going to be fun. I kind of want to rewatch these movies, though, as much as it pains me. For my number 2 is the one that we watched together, The Flash.
Nice. I had that at number 4.
I think there's a lot of people that hate this movie. And I understand that hate because I think the ending was bad.
Yeah.
And I think if you watched Across the Spider-Verse before this movie, your opinion of this film is going to be worse. Because Across the Spider-Verse does the multiverse so amazingly well, whereas The Flash does not. However, if you just look at The Flash's story, Barry Allen's story in this, and Ezra Miller's acting, and that's like the focal point that you focus on, this is a great film.
Uh-huh.
I will say, though, this movie starts great and it turns bad quickly. I think I might have to change my 4- originally lower, because in retrospect, I'm like, it ends closer to meh than great. But I put this number 2 on my list because I'm like, this is like the only movie that really hits that peak for me. All right, what's your number 3?
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Ooh, I have this 8. Explain.
So, this came out a while after the first. Well, actually, yeah, quite a while after Justice League, and to me, the first release Justice League just did not feel right. Of like more of kind of like, where are you going with this? Because you went from dark and broody to this fun of just like, where are you?
Josh Whedon humor.
And it was kind of just like, so you have these brooding characters, and you bring them all together. You have the kind of like neutral Wonder Woman who's just, not funny, but not brooding.
Yep.
She's kind of just like the neutral of just like, save.
Which is actually, like, I feel like that's her character. She's more neutral.
Right. And you bring the brooding Superman, you bring the brooding Batman, and then you bring the comical Aquaman and the comical Flash together.
With a brooding cyborg.
Right. And it's kind of just like, so you have all these brooding characters, but then you have these two fun-loving dudes come into this that just literally are like making fun of the brooding guys. And you just have Wonder Woman who's just like, boys. Of like, you either have the really pissed off, upset people, or the guys that could really give a shit and are going to stay comical and make it funny. That it's just like, I don't understand where this is going with. That when Zack Snyder's came out, you have that clash, but there's more of a story to it of like where it's heading, with the ending of it being basically the apocalyptic. Superman goes evil.
Yep. Because
the Joker kills Lois Lane in it. Like, that's the story of it, because he goes...
You mean Injustice?
Basically, that...
Lois Lane doesn't die in this movie.
That, isn't that, I thought, because it's
no, that's
evil.
Injustice.
Oh, well, no, at the end credits...
Oh, right.
Them all getting together, and it's an evil Superman of like they killed Lois Lane. Now I'm like, okay, I like this direction of like this explains why you've been doing all the broodiness and like making it like this, because you're gonna do this universe.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to kind of makes like Superman is never gonna do this. You kind of leaned into.
It's an interesting direction for this film, and I feel like they took one. I feel like this film being 4 hours is just not necessary because there's so many like slow mo shots of like just people walking. Like it's like, man, you could at least cut some things. You don't have to use all of your footage. At least cut some parts, because I don't need to watch this man walk for 30 seconds. But I will say, like, the story makes sense. And I will say Zack Snyder's, like, actual cuts, where he, like, gets full control of, like, the cuts and times constraint. Same with Batman vs. Superman. I think, like, the Snyder cut of that film is a lot better than the original version. And I will say Justice League, it's A for me, because like that movie, I still hate the direction that he's going, but I can't lie and say it's not interesting. It shouldn't be main canon. It shouldn't be like the main universe. But at the same point, I'm like, you know what? I don't want this like half and half, like the studio intervening and trying to like curve his direction. I either want none of Zack Snyder or all of it. Preferably none of it. But like if he's going to be a part of it, I want to see where he's going, because he's at least an interesting director. His choices are at least interesting.
Right.
They're worthy of watch. Even Rebel Moon that came out. I haven't watched that movie yet. I hear it's atrocious, but I'm at least interested to see how it turned out. I want to like at least see it.
Right.
I don't expect good things, because like Zack Snyder, I think overall isn't a great director, at least when it comes to writing stories. I think his storytelling is awful, but I think there is like 300 Watchmen are great films. And I think if you have the right person writing for him, he can be great, because his directing is good. We got to move on. Number 3 for me is Shazam.
Oh, I have that at 6.
This movie is... I love Shazam as a character.
Right.
And this movie just embodies shit. This is the first film where I really feel like the comic book character came to life. And Zachary Levi just... The kid, like the actor who plays the kid doesn't do a good job of playing Billy Batson. I think like he has such a serious take, and I'm like, ugh. Billy Batson's goofy. Like he's like a kid.
Right.
He's not a serious adult kid. He's a kid. And then Zachary Levi is a kid, like in an adult body. And I really liked his acting. I really just like the parts where they're just testing the powers. Like that's the best part of the film. It's just them fucking around with his powers, and it's hilarious. It's comical. Like. Especially with the song "Humble" in the background in that trailer. It's one of my favorite trailers because it's just a fun watch. So this movie's a 3 for me because it's a fun movie to watch. Yeah, it's number 3. All right, what's your 4?
Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Oh, you're going for your okay.
Yeah,
Shazam 2. All right.
Because I feel like they hit Shazam, and this is where. It's the movie where, it starts out of, like, the family's still all superheroes, and, like, they're trying to be superheroes, but this movie kind of, like, takes that next notch in his story of where he actually starts realizing and taking stuff seriously of he is a superhero. He's not the kid that is going to be messing around with his powers anymore. He actually takes it serious. And actually is like, I'm actually the one person that can actually stop this right now. As, like, his family loses the power because they're stealing it back.
I am so mad at Dwayne Johnson. Because Black Adam really should have been the villain for this movie. Because I felt like this movie, we've reviewed it, we've seen it together.
Right.
It is the most generic superhero of all time. It's like... Somebody's like, hey, make me a Shazam movie on an AI chat GPT, and they wrote this. And it's the greatest generic superhero movie of all time. It hits all the buttons.
Right.
But it's not like, it's one of those movies that are like, it just doesn't feel, there's no heart. There's no soul. Like, Zachary Levi is the heart of it.
Right.
But it's like, to me, it's 11 on my list. I have it behind... No, wait, 10. It's 10 on my list. I have it behind Blue Beetle. I think it's a solid movie. It's fun. If you don't think about it that much, it's up there. But, yeah. All right. I'm going to do Wonder Woman. And I'm actually surprised that I got Wonder Woman at 4. Because for a lot of people, that's the best one. And I find that this is one of... The last episode that I did, I called The Dark Knight the most overrated superhero movie of all time. Wonder Woman might be second on my list for most overrated superhero movies of all time. Because when this movie came out, they're like, oh, this is a great movie. I'm like, no, it's not a great movie. There's great parts. The beginning. Chris Pine kind of makes this movie. Not that Gal Gadot does a bad job, but like he kind of pushes it through because like it's just those two going back and forth, and like that's just fun. It's that whole Amazon island of women type of story. They're flirting around with the idea that this movie flirts with that idea,
right?
And Chris Pine flirting with that idea is just a fun, genuine watch. The middle of the movie gets boring, and the last part is for the most part good, and still the CGI battle. I think the choice of having Ares, like the surprise, like who is Ares is great, but I hate the motivation because like Ares gets powerful by just war, but no, it's like I'm mad at humans for killing the gods. It's like revenge. Is that like I want power? I want that as the motivation,
right?
Like have him just be this force that wants war to get powerful, and he's like trying to take reins over, but no, instead it's a revenge mission. And I'm like it's fine. Wonder Woman, though, is 4 on my list. I think it is a pretty good, the great film. It's the first film that I felt that like was really... It did feel like Wonder Woman. I did say Shazam felt like Shazam. Wonder Woman was close. And it was the first film that I can really say it was like, this is a good to great film. This is almost a great film. This is like a 3+ for me.
I have it down at 11.
You have it at 11? Sexist.
No, I just was like, the more movies were coming out, I was like, it wasn't a horrible movie. It just wasn't like,
Exciting.
yeah, it wasn't like,
I agree.
it was kind of just like, okay, well, now you kind of, she was a part of Batman versus Superman, and this is the movie you choose to like like you're almost backtracking with this of like this should have came out before Batman and Superman of just like her being.
There's a lot of movies like that, though.
Yeah.
All right, what's 5 for you?
Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
You're taking BVS. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I have. That's 12 for me. I don't like this movie. I told you I was a 9 out of 10 excitement. My excitement for the DCU after watching this film was a 3. Actually, okay, hold on. It was like a 5. It became a 2 after Suicide Squad, but we won't talk about Suicide Squad yet. BVS at 5. Okay, explain.
Well, I technically have this at number 9, but I mean, compared to all the others, after watching some of the really bad ones, I'm like, after watching them, I'm like, this really wasn't that horrible compared to some of them where it came out with so much excitement because it's like, yeah, this is the Batman versus Superman. Like, this is normally one of the more like, Iron Man versus Captain America of like, this is like the two heads that normally will bump and they're making it into it of like, this is how you're introducing Batman. And I mean, in my opinion, it wasn't horrible, but it definitely flopped for the hype that it was giving us.
Yeah, the hype was a 4. This movie's a 2 for me. The Ultimate Edition's like 3 minus, or the Snyder Cut. I forget exactly what the title they went with. I thought it was Ultimate, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Extended cut.
Something like that. The Snyder Cut makes more sense when you actually watch it. The plot makes sense. Lex Luthor makes sense.
Right.
But the theatrical release does not. Like, I'm like, what is Lex Luthor doing? What's his plan? Like, I don't really know. The motivations of Superman and Batman were kind of just meh. Like, I thought this movie, story-wise, should have been a lot better. And also, the Martha scene was just god-awful.
Oh my God.
Like, Martha! That's my mother's name. Like, I'm not gonna, like... It just took this serious film and made it silly. It was silly. I will say the Batman fight scene to save Martha was fucking dope. Yeah, this movie's really low on my list. All right, this is another one I'm surprised I'm getting, but I think this is a movie that's actually more lower on everybody's list. And I honestly might have to say, this is the movie I'm taking at number 5, and this is 5 on my list. Birds of Prey is probably the most underrated superhero movie of all time. And one, it really shouldn't be called Birds of Prey. I know they're in it, but it really should be Harley Quinn in the Birds of Prey. Because this is a Harley Quinn movie through and through. It's all about her growth. It's all about her breaking up with Joker. And Joker's not even in it, and they made it work somehow. This movie, I don't know why, but I can go back and watch it. Ian McGregor as Black Mask, even though Black Mask doesn't wear his mask often, I just like seeing him in a villain role. It's just fun. And Harley Quinn just being Harley Quinn to a T of like her. I feel like this is the most Harley Quinn she's been in the 3 or 4 films. I think 3 films she's been in, right? Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey.
Technically,
right? That's the only 3 she's been in. Like, this is the most Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And I like her narration. I like how it backstep too. I like how some of the action scenes with her and the bat and just breaking bones. Like, I don't know why this movie is so underrated and why people don't like it, other than the fact that they're sexist against any woman movies, and that is a trend. And I'm not necessarily saying like that's the reason why people are low in this movie. That's probably my leading suspicion. But this movie just, as a film, I really like it. It's number 5 on my list. It's one of the last few films that I'm like, yeah, this is borderline great. Yeah, I would say this is the last like borderline great film. So yeah, Birds of Prey is number 5, and I'm surprised that I got it at 5. I'm surprised I'm 5 for 5 on my top 5. This draft's going great for me. Thank you. All right, what's your number 6? He's thinking, looking at his draft board.
Actually, thanks for leaving it. Suicide Squad.
The original?
The first one. Yeah.
That's 16 on my list. I was hoping you'd take it from me.
Because I'm like, you're totally fine taking Birds of Prey because that's 15 on my list.
That's 15? You underrated. Sexist.
No, I just couldn't get it. Moved too slow and ADHD was kicking in, and I'm just like, there were no points at all that grabbed me for that
Really?
movie. Not a single one of just like...
Not even like beanbag police scene where she's like narrating the whole time. It's slow-mo and it's like there's literally confetti and she's hitting everyone with the beanbag with music in the background. That scene popped my ADHD.
I'm like, nope, not even.
I gotta show you that scene and sit you down.
I literally
and,
was just like, so we're going the same way with like the breakdown of Suicide Squad, where we do more slow mo.
I know you like this movie, and I know this is a movie you have high up there. Explain to the audience why you're picking this movie. At 6, it's reasonable to pick it at 6.
Actually, I have it at number 10 on my list. You keep taking some of my higher ranked ones, and I'm just like, okay, what's next in line? I'm just like, and now I'm down at number 10 on my list. So it's more of, it was one of the more kind of fun ones where, yeah, it was serious, but it actually had more of that fun attention grabbing of like, you know, plus it was also one where it was like, haha, the big lady fucked up because one of her ones that were on the Suicide Squad is actually the villain because you thought you had control, but you actually don't, because this is like a super powered person and you can think you have them. No, just the setup of like the way they're controlling it is her heart, and it's kind of just like, it's really not going to be that hard for someone to steal that.
I think this is another movie I could explain as if I was a 12-year-old playing toys. This also 12-year-old hates helicopters. Because I'm pretty sure... is it David S. No, it's a different David. We already had this conversation at my last pod. There's so many helicopters crash like in this movie that I'm like, this person hates helicopters. Or they're afraid of helicopters. Because there's like 3 or 4 helicopters that crash.
Definitely.
And then it's like part of the plot point. I do not like this movie. This is one of those, like I said, this is the movie that killed my excitement for the DCEU. And I think the problem was, I promised my cousin that I would go with him because he came down to visit me. But my partner at the time also wanted to go see it with me. So I made plans to go see it twice. And this is a movie I was excited for because I watched Batman Assault on Arkham, which is an amazing Suicide Squad film. It's called Batman. It really shouldn't be. It's Suicide Squad through and through. And it's arguably the best Suicide story that I've seen. Even including my first pick of the Suicide Squad. I almost think that anime movie is a better story than this one. And I watched this movie twice. And I remember watching it the first time and be like, my God, this is awful. And then my partner at the time being excited, like, oh, we're going to go see it. I'm like, do we have to? Yeah, you promised. I know. But do we have to? Because this movie is awful. Like, this is like one of the few movies I think I gave it a 2- at one point. I'm close to a 1+. Because the first half hour is like one of the best parts of this film, but it's not even good because it's just a 30-minute music video of them showing like the infographics of every character, and those were the best scenes. And after that, like, it wasn't colorful anymore. It was just like them going against dark blob monsters. And like the whole plot was this, like, she creates a team, and the whole team, all it does is save her. Like, that was the plan, not to save the world. Like, the plot didn't make sense. The Joker was there when he really shouldn't been. I will say the character work was good. Like, I think Harley Quinn was good in this film. Will Smith's Deadshot was good in this film. It won an Oscar for its costumes, and it did have some pretty good costumes. But yeah, overall story-wise, this movie's 16. So, yes, I'm happy you took it. All right. I'm wearing the hat. Taking Aquaman at 6. And I'm okay taking Aquaman at 6. I think, yes, I have it 6 on my list. I already talked about this movie because this movie's fun. Because it sits in that space, like I said before, of even though like the plot is shallow, the screenwriting is meh. They kind of just go here, go here, go here, go here, go here. But like there's so much fun action with that like simple story. There's so much like fun lore building. It was just a fun film. Like I have it higher than Man of Steel, which I have at 7. So yeah, I have Aquaman at 6, and I'm okay taking it at 6. I think that's a win for me. I think I'm winning this draft, but I think that's how we're supposed to like think this. I will say 7 and 8 will not. It's going to be low on my list. I'm not going to like any 7 or 8 films. All right, who are you taking at 7?
The first Justice League that came out.
Oh, thank you for that. That's 15 on my list.
Because I have only remaining of like Black Adam and Wonder Woman 1984, which I found those two really atrocious for what.
We'll talk about Justice League.
But Justice League, like it, like I said before, like the Snyder Cut was a lot better. But this one, it was still somewhat of a fun movie of seeing all of them come together, like the original Justice League. Well, that's basically all it was the hype. It wasn't that great because it almost was like their story was all over the place. And basically there was the moment they all finally came together and were like, we need to work together. And then magically they were able to do it. And, like...
This movie was at least like fun in the sense of like the characters,
right?
Like
I have this ranked at like 13, so
it's 15 for me. Thank you for taking it.
Of like, well, technically this is like next in line for my ranking of just like I've been like in double digits of taking my movies for the past 3 picks of just like, nope. You took that one. Yep, you took that one. Damn it. What the hell?
Well, I know I just said this last time. I'm wearing the hat. I'm taking Aquaman 2. I'm making this a little bit easier on you. Or harder, because now I'm actually making you have a choice. I just spent 15 minutes ranting on how this movie sucks. And now I'm taking it at 7. This movie, at least visually, is pleasing. And there is some, like... I will say Jason Momoa is at least fun. I'm not saying it's still a 2 in my book, but compared to Black Adam or Wonder Woman 1984, I think I would rather have Aquaman 2. And I'm not going to talk much more on this movie because I already ranted how much I hate it, but I'm okay with taking it at 7. For me, this movie's at 11. I have it higher than Batman vs. Superman. Maybe I might change this later on. But right now it's 11 on my list. All right. You have a choice between Black Adam or Wonder Woman 1984. I hope you choose the one that I hope you choose. That doesn't make sense. There's one particular movie I hope you choose.
they're both so horrible that it's like it's a coin flip of like I'm going Black Adam just because it has the better character line of you get to see Dr. Fate and like younger heroes in it trying to work against Black Adam. That it's just a better storyline than
the fun filler episode that is 1984.
Yup, of just like, yep, they wanted to make a second Wonder Woman movie, but they don't know what to do because they're in their heads, this part of the DCU is just coming to an end. So we're just going to throw a movie hoping to make money. So we're going to make it where she gets her lover back and basically is doing something bad.
Well, talk Black Adam, man. Talk about your pick. Don't talk about the movie that you didn't pick. Talk about the movie you did pick.
I'm just saying why I picked it. I'm like, this movie was such a freaking bummer of like, you know, it was supposed to be like kind of a villain movie because Black Adam's,
yep.
I would say Black Adam's more villain than anti-hero like Venom, where he's not.
He's anti-hero. He's villain. Anti-hero is probably the best description.
I just feel he kind of leans more towards villain than anti.
Oh yeah,
just because, not that he's not, but he feels like he leans more that way of just like he's more about himself than helping people, where anti-hero helps more than they are about themselves type. Because
I think you got it mixed up. I think anti-hero is all about themselves, but they will align themselves with the heroes if it's for their benefit. Where they're not good nor evil. They kind of like walk that thin line. They can be the villain. They can be the hero. It really depends where their motivation lies. And villains also have that, but they're more aligned with like the bad guys. They're more aligned as antagonists and don't typically cross that line. But it is tough because there's a lot of villains
who cross that line.
There's a lot of villains that cross that line instead of heroes crossing that line. But Black Adam is originally a villain who kind of becomes an anti-hero just because his motivation is protecting his nation. He is, in a way, Namor from Marvel.
Right.
Namor is more hero. He's anti-hero. That's like his category you'd put him in. But he's more hero than villain. Black Adam's more villain than hero, if we're going to put it on the scale. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but like I think you just got mixed up with like the term anti-hero. He falls in anti-hero, but he's closer to the villain.
Right.
This movie, Black Adam, and I talked about this movie in this podcast. I'm happy you took Black Adam because I'm going to take Wonder Woman 1984. Obviously, it's the last one left. I'm okay with taking that one 8. I will say Black Adam is a VOT film. This is a movie that like feels like it's making fun of superheroes, but it's not. Like I watched this film and I'm like, I feel like I'm watching a parody of superhero movies. I feel like this is The Boys. Like if they actually released a VOT film, this is the movie they released. Because like the CGI in the background's bad. It feels like the acting is meh. Dwayne Johnson, he's a fine, like, I feel like he could fit Black Adam really well. He just shouldn't be like the lead role in this. I don't know if he can really.
He's not Venom.
He wants to be a drama actor, but I don't know if he has the chops for a drama. He's more like, it's just The Rock. It feels like he's just The Rock. I will say, Atom Smasher, Hawkman, Dr. Fate, it was cool seeing them. But when they were like talking on the ship, it felt like I was watching a CW show. and they were like joking back and forth, and the jokes weren't great. Oh, and I didn't mention this about Aquaman 2, because there's a lot of jokes on Aquaman 2, and I just want to mention it. No one in the theater, there's a decent amount of people in the theater this time. No one laughed. Not a single person laughed. during that whole movie. And there's a lot of like jokes that a kid would think is funny that would say to a crowd of adults and be like, hey, I have a joke. Da 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 da. And like you kind of like, ha ha ha. Yeah, that's great. My God, that kid should not be a comedian. Like that's basically like my thoughts on Aquaman 2. Anyway, Black Adam's essentially the same too. They have like similar humor where it's like it's not that funny.
Right.
All right, I'm taking Wonder Woman 1984. It's 13 on my list. It's higher than Black Adam, higher than Justice League, higher than Suicide Squad. This movie is like a filler episode. And it's kind of, like you said it, they made it for money. And that's the motivation, right? They're like, hey, Wonder Woman sells, write a story. And they're all, like, I was trying to come up with a Wonder Woman story that made sense. Like, there just isn't one that makes sense. Wonder Woman's tough because, like, she's off on a faraway planet, or not planet, but island. That island doesn't naturally have a lot of enemies. Like, it's the gods who are the enemies, but you can't really do that again. So, like, you have to bring her kind of either present day or, like, in the past. They put her in the past with Maxwell Lord, with Cheetah, and I think Cheetah's a great villain for it. It's such a, like, the story's all about, like, your wishes.
Right.
And it just, it felt like Halloween 3.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like, there is something to be had about the story. Like, if this was a filler, if this was a Wonder Woman TV show and this was the episode, I don't think anybody would, like, blink an eye at it. It'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a fine episode. Like, that's a fine story. But as a movie, like, if that's, like, your main story, it's like, what? That's it? I will say, Pedro Pascal, though, he's just a fun, he's a fun actor to watch.
Right.
So I was happy when you were like, Black Adam. I was like, yes, if I had to choose which H movies to watch, like, Wonder Woman's on that list because at least I get to watch Pedro Pascal play his role. But I'm upset that he's not a dad in this film. He really should just be a dad in everything he does. It should just be a rule. Pedro Pascal's in it, he's a dad. Because he is the ultimate daddy. You're just going to question me there?
Uh-huh.
You're going to just blink your eyes like, what the fuck did you... Yeah. I'm going to look in the camera. Pedro Pascal is the ultimate daddy. Donald agrees. Where's he when I need him? All right. What rating would you give the DCEU as a whole? We don't have much more.
I would honestly give it a 2.
You're giving it a 2. Okay.
Because just because there's so many bad films that flop that it counteracts too much of the few good ones.
I'm going to go 2+. Because of the good ones. Suicide Squad bumps up a little bit. Flash, Shazam, Wonder Woman, Birds of Prey, Aquaman, like over half the movies are decent, at least. Like, I think Blue Beetle on up. Blue Beetle, Zack Snyder Justice League, Man of Steel, Aquaman, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman, Shazam, The Flash, and Suicide Squad, for me at least, is at least like that threshold of good. Everything else is like meh to trash. And for good, like on a scale of like what is good, which is the bare minimum of like good, I guess. I don't know. I'm like horribly explaining this. I think it earns enough to do a plus. There are some decent films in this. It's not a horrible watch. If you had to like marathon all this, there are some things to look forward to. But I'm with you. I can't give it a 3-. Like, I'm close because Suicide Squad and a couple of these movies are like great. But no, it's a 2+. But I think 2 is fair.
Because 2 basically says that, you know, some people could enjoy it. I just can't. Like, there's very select few DCU movies that I'm like, yeah, let's watch that. I'm like, there's not enough for me to be like, this entire series is so good.
There's a lot of skippable.
Yeah, there's like so many skippable of like, you could literally just hand pick a few of these and just watch them, and they're great films just on their own.
Yep.
But doing like you can with Marvel, where you literally start from the very beginning and watch it all the way through.
At least first 3 phases.
Right.
It's a journey.
You can sit and watch everything. This, you're in a lot of pain where you're up and walking around of just not watching. It's just on in the background type movies.
Yeah, I will say, the one thing the DCU has going for it, or had going for it, past tense, it's over now. Thank God. Is that you can watch these movies individually. You don't have to watch Man of Steel before Batman vs. Superman. You don't have to watch Batman vs. Superman before Wonder Woman. You don't have to watch any movie before Shazam. Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, Wonder Woman 2. Obviously, you have to watch the first ones.
Right.
But like a lot of these movies that aren't like sequels, even the Suicide Squad, you don't have to watch the first one. And honestly, if you haven't watched the first one, please don't. It's not worth it. Just watch the second one. I know you feel differently. Okay, I just want to do a couple rapid fire questions, and then we'll get into DCU a little bit. Favorite villain?
Ooh.
I'm struggling with this one too. Actually, no, I have the answer.
I gotta say Scarecrow.
Scarecrow? That's dark. That's Batman Begins.
That wasn't the question for DCU.
DCEU, best villain.
That's a better
16
question.
movies.
I'm like, best,
16.
I'm
like Scarecrow. I'm like, what? Are we back in the Dark Knight trilogy review? That was last week. Which Scarecrow was up there? He's number 2 on Brandon's list.
I was gonna say because
I think he was number 2.
I'm like,
yeah.
for DC,
I'll say a couple of mine that I really liked. I think Zod should be up there. Michael Shannon as Zod is pretty good. I think Starro should be up there.
oh my gosh!
I just like the fact that they fucking just went with Starro. I appreciate James Gunn. Just a giant starfish. That's the villain. Black Manta. I love Black Manta. I like just the aesthetic of Black Manta, and I think like acting wise, I really liked him. The portrayal does leave a lot more to be desired, but it's up there on my list. There's one, I'm like blanking on one of them. I feel like there's not like one villain. Ian McGregor, Black Mask. I just like Ian McGregor as a villain. That was just fun. There isn't really a great villain in this.
No. I do have to say, though, there's one that's popping in my head, and it's a great villain. They just didn't use him.
Is it Darkseid?
Deathstroke.
When
they
he looks so great.
He freaking looked. There was so much hype with that, and they never once used him. Of just make the Batman movie. Just make the Batman movie of him versus Deathstroke, and it will possibly hold the hype that you're trying to go through, because Deathstroke versus Batman is very good. But in my head, he more of is like a Teen Titan Young Justice villain due to the fact they face him a lot.
If you had a time to one hero, it should be Nightwing. It's the one. Like, I know a lot of people say Batman. Some people say Green Arrow because of Green Arrow, the TV show. And in the comics, it is Green Arrow. He is more of a Justice League Teen Titan. He's more of a great villain. And arguably an anti-hero of sorts.
Right.
If you had a time to one hero, Batman makes sense, but really it's Nightwing.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think like if the question of which villain is underutilized, it's either him or it's Deathstroke or Darkseid.
Right. Because
Steppenwolf is like, that's going to be the villain. Like, why the fuck is it Steppenwolf?
Because then it introduced to Darkseid in this, and it's just like, you did the thing. You did the thing.
Who's the most disappointing villain?
Cheetah.
I didn't mind Cheetah.
You said most disappointing because she basically got it from the Wish.
Yeah.
Then they had like a small fight, and
In a dark setting.
and it was basically almost like you could have did a lot better with her.
I agree.
That's my most.
If I
disappointing.
had to do power rankings of most disappointing, I think she's lower on my list because I think this there's a lot of disappointing villains. Darkseid. Not be us. Lex Luthor is probably wins. I think Lex Luthor wins. Jesse Eisenberg felt like the greatest casting for Lex Luthor, and like for some reason he's goofy as fuck. Why? Do they know? I don't know. It just, like he just didn't act like Lex Luthor. Where he had the acting chops to pull a great, serious Lex Luthor. We're going through this list now too. Steppenwolf wasn't really disappointing because, like, he just...
It was more of disappointment that they used him.
Yeah. Doomsday was disappointing for how they used him.
Right.
Like, looking at the list too, not Zod. Ares was a little bit of disappointment for me. The Flash villain, where it's just the alternate evil Flash. I'm like, can you just be Reverse Flash or Zoom or any of those like Flash villains? Like, you have one of the greatest rogues gallery ever, and they're like, we're gonna make a new villain for this guy. Like, why? Like, you have Reverse Flash. Like, he's supposed to be the villain here. No? Okay. Like, you could even tease them at the end. I will say Enchantress is also pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
It's just that... Oh, wait. I have maybe the winner. Joker. Jared Leto's Joker.
You know,
and I don't
when
even
you
blame.
said that, like, most disappointing after I said Cheetah, the first thing that popped in, well, actually Joker, due to the fact he basically was in it, and he was like hyped in the movies he was in, and then they basically put him in like 2, maybe 3 scenes, and it literally was just like, where are you going with this? And then they basically just killed it with the Joker of just like, no, we're really not going to do. And they made their own side Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. And I was just like, are we ever really going to get a taste of this Joker? Is he just...
We got a taste in Justice League, Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
I actually really liked his character in that moment.
Right.
I was like, ah, this is like what we could have got. I felt bad for Jared Leto. Like, the stories of him, like, method acting and giving everybody, like, rotten fish. I'm like, dude, no. Like, they should have took the rotten fish and slapped him in the fucking face. Like, no. Like, don't method act it. Like, Heath Ledger did this. He ended up dying afterwards. I don't know if it's because of the Joker or if it's just other issues, but, like, don't method act. I have, like... If you're going to method act, just don't be a dick. And that was very dickish. Either way. I felt bad for his Joker because, like, they just cut his Joker out of that movie.
Yep.
And, like, I felt like... I just want to see this Joker breathe. I want to give it a shot. I think it was an interesting twist on it. Is it the best Joker? No. It's arguably the worst. But I don't think the hate is warranted because I'm like, I don't blame Jared Leto for his portrayal in this. I honestly just don't think his Joker really had a chance.
No.
Also, like, the screenwrite was just lazy. Because they're like, oh, look, he's damaged. He has a tattoo that says so. It's like, no, you don't need to have, like, him tattooed with, like, different stuff. Just have him in a makeup and, like, have him act weird. Like, that's simple as that. All right, let's get into DCU, James Gunn. We talked about this last year a little bit. DCU is over. We reviewed the 4 movies. And financially speaking, box office speaking, it failed, the last 4 movies. And there was a lot of people who were like, James Gunn's start was horrible. It was a horrible start. I'm like, no, this is like a dude who, like, if the coach gets fired, like if this is basketball or football, gets fired in the middle of the season and then he takes over. Like, you don't count the season.
Right.
Because he has nothing to do. Like, he's just trying to make it work. He's taking what he's given and he's trying to make it work. And it's, like, different, too, because he creatively didn't do anything with these movies.
Right.
James Gunn himself had nothing to do with these movies. Maybe the other CEO, the other Peter, I forget his last name. I think it starts with a G. The marketing was less to be desired. I don't care about that. Like, these films weren't going to be successful. Once you announce a whole new universe, the 4 films of an old universe just don't matter. There's nothing it builds up to. What movie and what character, what new portrayal are you most excited for? And it doesn't have to be a movie that has been announced, but what character are you, just after watching the DCU, are you excited for?
I am actually hoping that they at least try to use the Young Justice or Teen Titans in this next universe, because
I like that answer.
Just watching the cartoons and animes, that they actually get some pretty good hype.
Yeah.
That if they actually make a live, it could be like any adaptation of what Robin's
I like that.
in it, or
Working in Damian Wayne for sure. That's confirmed.
right, of just like utilizing these characters, of like you just had all these movies made. They have yet to do a live action of these, and they could easily utilize it of like your 3rd or 4th movie in, and utilize these characters as, you know, instead of doing a Justice League movie again to try to ram that down our throat of like they're better than the Avengers. No, actually, the ones that would actually be fun to see would be the Young Justice, and having like Batman and Superman just, you know, be in it, like
a legacy team with the other characters.
But, you know, of like kind of like for anyone that doesn't know it, of who these characters are attached to, type entrance, so that like they get some kind of backstory with who these are, not that it's just like, oh wow, a movie with, you know, just kids, of like, is this actually them younger? No, this is who they're actually attached to. This is like their sidekick playing the hero, facing villains. Of like, it would be a fun movie, in my opinion.
I like that answer. We're running out of time, so I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm gonna answer it and then quickly end the show. I'm being all slow. Sorry. I want to see Nightwing. Nightwing is probably in my top 5 of superheroes. He's one of my favorite characters. He's so lighthearted. He's like the opposite of Batman in a way, where he's not like this pessimistic. He's optimistic. He's cheery. Like, he's probably one of the best, like one of my favorite characters. He's up there with like Monkey D. Luffy when it comes to like genuine characters that like I just would love to have a conversation with. Because he's just a generally nice dude. And reading I'm behind on his comic, but like the comic that is currently running, I believe it's still running, is amazing. Just telling this Nightwing tale. I forget, Tom Taylor, I believe, is the writer. Great stuff. Check it out. Good story. The other movie that is announced that I'm looking forward to is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I love that comic. Tom King writes it. It's just like a really unique take on Wonder Woman, Supergirl. It's serious, but also has some like softer sides to it. I'm excited for that movie. But yeah, I agree with you. I love your answer. Young Justice, even if it's just Teen Titans, or even if it's just a younger like sidekick team,
right?
I would be down for it because I don't know why, but it seems like Warner Brothers or whoever is in charge of DC when it comes to live action, they're so like, we don't want the young sidekicks. I'm like, but like,
they're the fun ones.
They're fun, and it gives you a cool mentorship look at the other heroes. Young Justice should be proof that this works. All right, we don't have much more time. Anything else you want to say about DCEU? Last thoughts.
Oh, I hope these next movies are actually better. I don't want to be tortured by something that I actually want to love.
I feel
they make
you.
it difficult.
I think I trust in James Gunn. I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to Superman Legacy because I honestly believe it's going to be a great film. I expect a 4, if not higher. And that's a high bar to like. I'm like, I don't want to be crushed because if it's not that, everything moving forward is going to be soul crushing. This is like Batman versus Superman level hype. Like, it doesn't even have to be a big film. It can be a small story. Just have it be a good character story. All right, we got to leave it at that. Thank you, Moser, for coming on. It's been a while. Happy to see you.
Happy to be back.
DC guy, we got to talk more.
Definitely.
There's no DC projects though, so it's
really hard to do.
We don't have a whole year left. I'll see you next year, I guess. I guess I'll have you come back for other things like we have before.
Definitely.
All right, check out Don't Evolve Me. Check out podcasts. Check out the TikTok, social medias. I'm getting more active on YouTube. I'm trying to, at least. It can be hard, especially when you work with a bunch of like kids and you're constantly chasing after them. I'm exhausted most days, and I'm like, this past week though was able to make like 3 videos in like 2 hours. I was really happy to do so. But yeah, all right. Thank you, Moser. We are out later.